guys, so this video was one that I definitely wanted to make sure that I did when I decided to do this countdown for the Walking Dead season 9 premiere. And basically it was kind of to give a little bit of homage to the characters that I really miss. Now obviously in a few months or whenever it's gonna happen, Rick is gonna top the hell out of this list, you know, like I already know it. His presence will be so missed in the show, I feel like. But before then, I am going to talk about the 10 characters that I miss the most in the Walking Dead show. Now, when I originally made this list, listen, there's a high possibility that your favorite or the person that you absolutely love or miss the most may not be on this list, because this is just my preference and not, you know, how everybody thinks. And there's a lot of people who have died. There's a lot of people. There was some really main characters that just didn't make the cut for my top 10. But leave down below which 10 characters you miss the most. And yeah, let's just get right into this list. So number 10 on this list is Carl. I know, I'm sure almost everybody else would put him even higher than a lot of the people that I have higher up than him. But I mean, obviously his death was a huge deal for the show. There was a lot of backlash, and it was just something that people didn't really want. He did really represent, you know, the future of the show, and I honestly think, you know, people would stomach Rick going a little bit better if Carl was still around to kind of take the torch, so to speak. Now, I also think that there's other characters that can kind of do that. But the thing about Carl that was just so perfect watching throughout the years was we really saw a little kid from the very beginning having difficulty understanding this world, you know, or maybe actually understanding it better than everybody else. We see his journey. We see that he got kind of comfortable with the idea of violence in season 3, and we saw him kind of come back from that. And we saw him grow up to be actually a really wonderful young man. And, you know, I will say, you know, whether or not people agree with the choice to kill Carl off, I think it was really important, and I think they did a really great job with his send-off. And but of course it's obviously a huge hole in the show, and yeah, it's just somebody that I think maybe on an episode by episode basis you don't necessarily know that they're gone, but as a whole, when you think back and stuff like that, you really feel kind of that loss in the show. Number 9 on this list is Tyreese. It was really interesting getting to know the show's version of Tyreese, and you can kind of tell, I mean, of course, it was very different timelines with the comic books and stuff, but it was a very different vibe of the character. And all of the stuff with Tyreese and Carol and the relationship that they built and what they went through together was so amazing to me. And you know, Tyreese was definitely one of those guys that kind of became a very moral center of the show and everything like that. And always when people like that go, you more so realize it when other people lose their way because they're not there anymore. You know, Sasha went through a lot in that season, but you could tell it really affected her. I do really miss kind of having this sort of, and I don't really want to necessarily say it's a voice of reason, because sometimes things get a little gray areas with that stuff, but a voice of kindness that Tyreese brought. And the other thing was, like, if he needed to be a beast, he was a beast. One of my favorite Tyreese moments is when he was literally, you know, in that kind of cabin with Judith, and Martin gets a hold of her and all that stuff, and he just goes absolutely nuts on the walkers outside, and does the damn thing. But I think that his presence is absolutely a huge hole in the Walking Dead universe right now. Number 8 on this list is actually the character that I think was the shortest lived out of everybody in this top 10, and that is Denise. I was about Denise so much. One of my absolute she was one of those characters that I just felt like I fell in love with so quickly. And she really wasn't on the show that long, and she's in my top 10. I think she just had the potential to just be such a great fighter, such a great medic. You know, doctors are rare. And the fact that she was really kind of a fish out of water, so to speak, really, but she did her best with this whole, she really just sort of said, you know what, if I'm not going to do it, nobody else will. I am going to try my best. And the relationship that she was building up with Daryl was so sweet. And her and Tara were very, very, very cute couple. And I cannot tell you how sad it is, because she just, really so much potential for a character. I think she was a fan favorite pretty quickly. I don't know too many people who didn't like her that much, and just everything that was going on with her in No Way Out, and such a wonderful, amazing character that got cut way too short in the show. Number 7 on this list. Let's go back. Come on, people. We got to journey back. We got to journey back a little bit. And that is Shane. The thing about Shane is, it wasn't really so much kind of like Denise, where you felt like maybe her time got cut short. I felt like, everything with Shane was really gearing to a head with Rick at the end of season 2, and it kind of made sense that one of them was going to go, and there was going to be some sort of a showdown kind of vibe. However, like, I know a lot of people feel the same way. It would be really interesting to see Shane as kind of time went on. And I think John Bernthal is amazing, and I'm just so proud of him with everything with The Punisher. I just really, really proud that he's able to showcase his acting in other forms and stuff. But I think Shane would have been interesting. How would Shane have handled the governor? How would Shane have handled Negan? Now, I think you can probably make a case for a lot of things. Maybe he would have thrived. Maybe he would have gotten himself and other people killed. But Shane was such a fascinating character that had a lot of different sides to him that I felt, really it could have gone so many different ways. He had some actual sweet moments. I know that that's kind of, maybe we mostly just remember kind of crazy Shane a little bit, or, more intense, aggressive Shane. But one of my favorite moments with Shane is when he finds Carol and he's washing her arms. Do you even remember that? Oh, he had a heart and love, but he got very blinded by everything. But I honestly, he is pretty high on my list of characters that I miss, because it just would be so interesting to see what the fuck would have gone down with Shane still in the show. And moving on to number 6, we have Abraham. Abraham. Now, Abraham's death slightly gets overshadowed for pretty much everybody for what happens right after. But I think I love, just to talk about his death for a second, but I love the fact that Abraham, I mean, he had a foul mouth. He had like this, you know, maybe he wasn't the nicest, you know, putting himself out there and stuff. He's a little rough around the edges and stuff. However, he was such a protector, and if he was loyal to you, he was loyal to you. And you know what I find really fascinating is, where would Abraham, and you guys can answer in the comments if you want, where would Abraham have really landed on this side of Maggie, Maggie's kind of you know, mission to really want to kill Negan, and then Rick's decision at the end, and this sort of rift, we'll say, between the two. You know, it's really interesting because I feel like maybe Abraham's presence would have helped everybody not really try to stay on the same page. Maybe Abraham's presence would have really helped people fight a lot earlier than they did, which could be to detriment or not. We won't really know. But I loved the idea that, you know, when they were in that lineup, he was the only one who was staring Negan in the eyes and kind of be like daring him to do it. And he took that for literally everybody else in that lineup. And there's something so wonderful and protective. I will say I was a little sad that, I mean, I'm actually one of the people who, I'm actually very content with Morgan over on Fear, so don't get me wrong. However, I was one of those people who was really hoping it would be Abraham, because we could just see more of the character. And I don't know, maybe someday they'll go back and show maybe how Abraham and Eugene and Rosita and they, you know, all of that sort of how they started off, though we've gotten some scenes. I really, really miss him. Number 5 on the list, we're getting to the top 5, and one of the characters that I just really related to, and what I love about The Walking Dead is we all relate to different characters, but one that I just felt so, I don't know, like I would react in the same way. If I was really honest with myself, I would react in the same way that she did in a lot of situations, and that is Sasha. At the beginning, I feel like Sasha didn't super jump out at me. I liked her fine. Her kind of moments with Tyreese were really the best part. But after a while, oh my God, I could see so much of my personality in hers, and I just got really attached. Even when she was kind of in her lowest points, I'm like, I feel like that's how I would react. The time where she snapped at that lady in Alexandria, I felt so connected, because I was like, I was there with her. I'm like, why are these bitches talking to us about recipes and stuff? It just, especially after all she lost in that moment. Again, another thing, I am just so proud of Sonequa. I love you, girl, and with everything that she's gone on to do with Star Trek and everything like that. But I just, man, it was a loss that I felt. And that final, you know, her relationship with Maggie, I always say this, is one of the most underrated relationships and friendships on the show. Everybody talks about, you know, Daryl and Carol, and Rick and Daryl, Rick and Glenn. So many friendships really get highlighted, but I feel like people need to give a little more for Maggie and Sasha. Very different, you know. Alone is one of my favorite episodes because of the fact that it was kind of this pessimist versus optimist vibe, and in that they found this common ground, and they both lost their siblings, one right after the other. They were bonded by circumstance, and for Maggie to lose that, especially right after Glenn and everything, it just was so heartbreaking. But I just feel like Sasha was a strong woman She was a fighter through and through. She was one of their best soldiers. I mean, man, do we miss having, you know, I always felt safe in a scene when Sasha was like up on a rooftop somewhere, you know, with a rifle or whatever she kind of had on hand. I just absolutely, you know, there was a comforting feeling about Sasha being around. But not only that, I feel like she had to kind of try to cope with her emotions, and once she found happiness with Abraham, it was so beautiful. And Sasha, man, do I miss her so much on this show. Number 4 on this list is probably somebody who is pretty high on a lot of people's lists, and that is Hershel. The Green family means a lot to me, and I just absolutely love them in general, especially kind of when they got into the prison and the characters were more fleshed out. It was really interesting that Hershel, to me, was such a like angry old man in the beginning, you know what I mean? He just was not having any sort of you know, Rick and his group being on his farm and his beliefs and everything. But man, to see such a like an older man, see how much he grew and how much he became accepting and loving. And even after losing a fucking leg, he was a boss. I mean, I love everything about that man. And one of the most underrated episodes of season 4 is the one where, you know, he's kind of protecting everybody in the sick ward, and the way that he kind of deals with, you know, and I'm not going to get the exact right quote, but he says kind of like a broken spirit will kill faster than a germ, and that really kind of encompasses everything that Hershel really was. And there is something about, you know, obviously it wasn't Hershel was very different than in the comics, I think, and Hershel didn't have that death in the comics, but it was something that was so, somehow it kind of needed to happen to get the show into such a dark place, I feel. But that doesn't mean I'm happy with it by any means. You know, losing Hershel is probably one of the greatest losses that could have happened to so many of the characters, not just obviously Maggie and Beth, but Rick and Glenn and just people who were really close to him. I mean, still to this day, that scene where he gives Glenn the watch, I mean, that fucking watch, you know, is just such a beautiful symbol on the show. And watches just in general are a really big symbol on the show, but you feel like there's always a little bit of Hershel there, and he's looking after everybody, and obviously the kind of fatherly, wise, and caring spirit of Hershel was always, I felt, really sad thing to be missing. And I really liked him because he also kind of had that badass spirit to him. He wasn't entirely a big old sap, but he was kind of a sap. A little bit. I'm still like hoping that at some point we're gonna get a flashback to in the prison and we have Glenn and Maggie's wedding. I don't know if they actually had a wedding or if they just said, hey, we're married now, whatever. But I feel like they had a wedding. I feel like Beth was singing. I feel like Hershel performed it. And, you know, maybe, I don't know, did like Maggie came down the aisle on Daryl's motorcycle. Listen, it's all in my head and I would just really like this flashback to happen. So if we could work at writers, you know, I'm sure they're watching. Just kidding. No, yeah. But anyway, that would be really, really great. And I feel like we could get our dose of Hershel again, and I would be very content with that. Number 3 on this list, and yeah, this is a little bit of a weird one. This is a little one that I feel like some people are going to be like, what, Jess, you're a little, this is, I don't know. And that is Merle. I loved Merle. I loved Merle. I mean, he's an asshole. He's sexist. He's racist. He has flaws for sure, but there was something about his character that I found fascinating, and I really, kind of like with Shane, really wanted to see what would happen if he was still on the show. I think he went in a great way. I think the episode that they killed him off, it all wrapped up really well. And the fact that he kind of sacrificed himself, I wouldn't necessarily say for the group, but for Daryl, and Daryl cared about the group, so that all encompassed and stuff. And I kind of wish that we got a little bit more with Merle and Michonne and seeing maybe them grow a little bit. But again, he's kind of a character that I kind of just really would have wished to see what would have happened if he continued. You know, when the prison fell, I feel like he would have fought, and that would have been really interesting, with everything with the governor. But, you know, when everybody got separated, could you imagine if Merle was just in one of the groups? That would have been a very weird dynamic. Like, what if it was Merle and Glenn that got stuck at the prison at the end? I'm just going into all these weird hypotheticals at this point, and they had to go search for Maggie together after what Merle did. Bitch, what in the world? You know, like, that would have been some tense ass shit. And, but I think I really miss, I mean, I'm a big fan of Michael Rooker, and I'm just so content with everything that, you know, how it all ended for Merle. But I kind of, sort of, a little bit wanted a little bit more. And he is a presence. I don't know. I know you guys probably think I'm crazy, but I think he would have been a really interesting character to have seen him grow or not grow or revert back to his old ways once, you know, shit kept hitting the fan. I don't know. But I find that fascinating, and that's kind of the stuff that I love to keep thinking about what could have happened with Merle. Number 2 on this list. Now, I have kind of my trifecta of 3 favorite characters, and 2 of them are gone. The last one's going soon. So the number 2 on this list is actually not a fan favorite for a lot of people, but for me, Beth. Beth was somebody who I think we all wrote off in her first season, season 2. I think it was kind of before I, and maybe a lot of people, had faith that The Walking Dead sort of, if they're going to kill somebody off, you know, they've always kind of said that they're going to earn their death, and it's going to be not just, you know, if they are focusing on a character and it's not like kind of a background character that gets killed off, you know, they're going to make sure that it gets built up. And I cannot say how amazing it was to see them take Beth, who was really, for most of us, the character that we're just like, oh, she's gonna go soon, and build her up to be such a wonderful, just an absolutely, to me, great character that grew. I do know that people are very polarized on Beth, and half of the people really love her and half the people don't. Now let me explain, because so many times if you say that you're a Beth fan, people label you as this, like, and there's nothing wrong with, you know, it's like who you like and whatever, but I'm not like a person who was really shipping her and Daryl. It had nothing to do with that, but like people are like, that's the only reason you like, and I'm just like, I mean, no. I loved the fact that she was so positive. Now she did have kind of that creepy time where she was like, you know, the amount of days without an accident, and she seemed really kind of really okay with the fact that people die all the time. But eventually it just was this beautiful positive force. And the Green family, Hershel and Beth, I miss you guys so much. I cannot express it. But the fact that she had this sort of positive light, she cared about music, she cared about art, where you really should only be caring about surviving. And then, as you know, there needs to be a reason to live. And it was just a concept that I didn't really think about until they really started kind of putting that sort of plot in with her character. Like, oh yeah, like what are you really surviving for? Great, you're eating, you know, like bugs and you're living to another day, but what does it matter if you're just gonna sit there and eat bugs tomorrow and the day after that and whatever? And she really made it very clear that she cared. But the other thing that I loved is that she really did want to learn. I mean, I love the Daryl and Beth storyline. They were my favorite people to watch out of all of the people who got separated because of the fact that they learned a lot from each other. She kind of taught, or whatever you want to call it, Daryl to get more out of life. And he showed her, that she can be strong and she can survive. But even the pure honesty when they had that kind of porch conversation and she says, I'm going to be gone soon. She knows it. And there was something in that moment, my heart really melted because I was just like, she knows she's going to be gone soon and she's trying to make sure Daryl is okay before she goes. Because she knows he's going to last a while. And there's just something so beautiful about that. Ooh, I'm going to cry. But I just, and the way that they did, now I was a wreck, and this is before I did reactions. I was a wreck when she died. I was not happy, even in the slightest. And it just, literally, it was just such a, sad way to go because she was strong. And I loved the idea of the seemingly super weak girl who found her strength going head to head with a seemingly very strong woman who was kind of weak inside, and the weak killed. It's tragic. It's tragedy. So at least I take comfort in knowing that my two favorites that have gone, their death scenes were fairly iconic and really well done for the characters, even if it is tragic. The shot of Daryl carrying Beth is just something that I find to be really sad but weirdly beautiful at the same time. I miss her so much, and I feel like she had so much potential to keep growing and to be a phenomenal person in Rick's group. It was just tragic, and I cannot express how much I really, really do miss Beth. Number one on this list, who's surprised? Nobody's surprised. Literally couldn't even hear his name without bursting into tears for the entire season after he was killed. Honestly, it was a mess. And that is Glenn. Glenn. I mean, you can feel the loss of Glenn more than I feel like any other character, but I mean, I'm sure you can make an argument otherwise, but in my mind, he was the guy who really held shit together. Absolutely. And the best part about Glenn, and I know that a lot of people, when they think about like their favorite characters of the show, a lot of people goes towards Daryl, and I get it. I love Daryl and everything, but like, but Glenn was amazing. He was strong, you know, like he was a kind guy. He was kind of one of those very moral compass, but he still got shit done when he needed to. Oh my Lord. The amount of stuff that man went through, and just continued to have this kind of bright, positive spirit, and to still have hope for people. Tara, and then like Nicholas, and just like the idea that he just wanted to save people. It's just, and for him to be kind of the first person that after Rick got into Atlanta, to be the person that saved Rick. And I loved the speech at the end of the season 7 finale where Maggie was like, you know, Glenn took that risk on you, and that's what we should do now for forever, you know, more, you know. And I missing him, and the moments with him where, you know, when he was strapped to the chair. I mean, let's go back a little bit, you know, him having to go down the well, you know, him getting out of the prison. The guy has so much fight in him, which is why the way that he died was just so fucking like a punch in the gut to all of us, because you kind of hope that your favorite character and people that you care about a lot in these shows are gonna go like a champ, you know, and not just getting beaten to death, you know, in a lineup. I do agree when I think Robert Kirkman said that there really wasn't anybody else that they could kill that would really affect the group in the same way. So it had to be Glenn. I hear ya. I understand. He is amazing with everyone and has, you know, even like Abraham's group, he was a big part of even before they got to Terminus. And there was just, he touched so many lives, really. I mean, I know that's like a corny thing to say, but he really did. And his death is I agree with the fact, is like the worst thing that probably could have happened to that group. When it comes to losing somebody who you just have so much faith in, and I don't mean this in a bad way, very reliable. You know, a lot of characters kind of go around the spectrum of how crazy they are, and Glenn kind of always stayed strong. He did what he needed to do. When they went into that, you know, to kill the Saviors, it was the first time he killed somebody, he did what he needed to do. I could talk about Glenn for hours. I won't, because I'm sure you guys are kind of sick and tired of the video at this point, but it just, he is a loss, and obviously Rick is going to be on the same level with me, but both of them are just the loss of the show that I feel like it's very hard to stomach and very hard to move on from. And to know that, you know, he's no longer going to be on the show anymore. And Rick, I mean, those were my two guys. They were my guys. And I love the other characters. Don't worry. I'm still on board, but they were my two. They were everything. They were everything. Especially the scenes that they would have together. Because I feel like Glenn, I'm tearing up, sorry, like kind of really got Rick, always kind of pulled him back. And he was always there for him. Glenn is very missed. You know, I wholeheartedly believe he would have really helped keep everybody together, and really helped everything that happened after his death, you know? All right. I think I'm done. Before I cry, I'm gonna stop talking about Glenn now. So guys, that is my top 10 characters that I miss the most for The Walking Dead. Of course, there are a lot of other characters that are just as amazing and I miss a lot as well. But, you know, there had to be 10 that got into the top 10. So those are the ones that I particularly miss the most. But please leave, you know, a comment down below talking about the 10 characters that you miss the most. Again, I'm sure that they're all going to be super different. We all gravitate towards different characters, and I find it really fascinating to hear what characters that other people feel like are just, you know, kind of left a big hole for them, and or you really wanted to see more of and see what would have happened with them if they made it further onto the show. I hope you guys really loved this video. It was one of the ones that I was really excited to make for you guys, and I hope you guys are excited as we get closer and closer to the premiere of The Walking Dead. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.